Ali, yesterday when we were sat with the new cohort in Edinburgh, I realized there was a key point that we need to discuss, and that's resellers on Amazon.
Let's do it. The good, the bad, the ugly. Let's go. How are we doing today? You well?
I'm doing well. How are you enjoying Edinburgh?
I'm loving Edinburgh. It is fringe. I broke my fringe virginity, and yes, I got a show and awesome.
That was awesome fun last night. I feel it was more fun for everyone else in the audience than it was for us.
Yeah, because we basically got ripped into by the comedian.
Yeah, we were great.
And the poor guy had a total audience of 7, 3 of which were us.
The minute we walked in, I was going to say I knew we were in trouble. But we're in Edinburgh on some serious business, so I've been thoroughly enjoying that.
We were government business, like James Bond, only not. So yeah, we were Scottish government, doing some work for Scottish government, which was great.
I'm loving it. This is the third time we're doing this. Our third cohort with them on their accelerator program, the Amazon accelerator program. There's some amazing businesses on that, so I'm really looking forward to working with those over the next 12 weeks.
They've done a really good job of putting it together, I think. So well done to them. And they found a really good cohort, as you said, some really interesting brands. And the cool thing is they're going to go from 0 all the way to export in 12 weeks. It's an epic accelerator program. So yeah, I'm looking forward to this.
Yeah, I was going to say, the conversation today, the question I have for you actually came off of one of the key points that came up yesterday when we were discussing it with the brands. And that is resellers.
The good, the bad, the ugly.
Yeah. Shall we start with the good?
I was going to say, can we go in the opposite order? Because it usually comes to us as a discussion around the ugly scenario of resellers. And I think it's worth going, let's go through that, break that down. Let's go to the bad, and then let's start at the good. And then we round off with some optimism. Because this is the upside, we want to make things happy, and you're on the bright side.
Resellers often, whenever brands come to us, struggling really hard because they've lost control of their listings. There are loads of resellers all over it. Their revenues are dropping and falling. Their market share is falling.
Their brand doesn't look good. Someone else has created the listings, perhaps. Yeah, they're not making money. They're getting dominated. Or their price, and this is where they often complain. Their price points absolutely destroyed. So it's not hitting the price points they needed to do. If they want to step in, they can't do it. And so that's like the ugly scenario, right? So things don't look good. It's not commercially viable. It's not working as a platform. Let's complain to Jeff.
Yeah. So I think actually there's a hidden bit that most people talk about those parts of it, but the hidden bit here is that actually at the same time, they're losing market share. So what's happening is, because the brands, you said the optimization, everything's off, but fundamentally, their advertising is off, because you can only do sponsored product advertising on Amazon if you own the buy box, if you have the buy box. If you've got a whole load of resellers selling on the same listing, they're driving the price down. There's no incentive or margin to effectively take the brand into new markets or trying to compete against competitors. So no one's doing advertising. It's latent demand that they're taking off of. So in essence, all that hard work that the brand's done to get people to come and look for them, they're just feeding off of that. They're doing nothing to add any value to the brand, and they're just pulling it down, dead weight.
What's the scenario here? So if you have that situation, it's not a pretty situation. What are we doing? How are we running that in? I have one idea. I mean, I don't know what your thoughts are.
Yeah,
so the number one place you need to start with, number one is brand registry. Just reclaim your space in your brand. The IP elements of it, right? So get your brand registry sorted, right? And I think that bit's important.
That's the fundamental.
That's my go-to. That's my starting position.
But often, I mean, this can happen to you even if you've got brand registry. You might have brand registry and still 100%. Have this issue.
If you don't, if you don't. If you don't,
theoretically,
this is the foundational point.
Yeah, I was going to say. So that's the really ugly side of it. But I mean, you could have the brand, the listings, and everything, and still have this issue. I think what it really means is a hard conversation with your distributors and anyone that's actually got your product.
Yeah, I think that's the second step you need to take.
Yeah, and that's a challenging conversation for some brands to have.
So they need to then basically go into a brand, like some of the brands we talk to, they'll need to go and basically, the e-commerce manager needs to have a chat with the national account manager or the wholesale manager and say, we need to work out a system where I can still kind of make Amazon happen, online happen, and it's not going to affect your wholesale space.
Yeah, I feel
right?
it's a really
Or
grown
the
up.
impact is controlled.
Yeah, it's a really grown up conversation needs to be had, and that's what can sometimes make it a challenge. As you said, there could be, it may not be a small business. There may be multiple heads in here that have different incentive schemes and things pushing past them. But what I think the real message that people need to get is no one's winning here. The resellers aren't winning. The brand's not winning. It's not working for anyone. You have to take control of it. And ideally, I don't know how you feel about this, but my feeling is there should only be really one seller on any one listing. I don't like it when there's more than one. I don't think that's healthy for a brand.
I don't know. I think Amazon has internal structures to manage that. I think it's when the situation gets ugly and bad. I'm not worried. My own products, we have multiple resellers for mine. I'm not worried because we have a handle on the whole situation, right? So number one, foundational, get brand registry, and second, talk to the resellers, make sure they're not driving price. Well, obviously you can't talk about RRP, but you're not driving price down. And the brand's looking the way we want it to, right? So that part's all together. It's more about knowing what outcome you want.
Yeah, and this is where so there is an option here, and I think it's worth highlighting because my feeling is if you can't have these conversations, if you don't feel that you can have these conversations with the resellers, or if you just don't, they're not listening to you, there is an option that there's kind of like an override that brands have access to, and that's putting the transparency program in place for certain ASINs.
I think you said it right. If people aren't listening and it's not working, so you got an agreement with the rest of your team, the whole thing's aligned, but the resellers are not aligned, then this is when you like call in John Wayne, you're like, boom, let's go and let's just wipe all these guys out. Transparency program, knock out any resellers. Only the stuff that we want and we are controlling is going to get sold.
Yeah, because you literally put a QR code sticker on any of the stock that can be sold on Amazon. If Amazon, once you've enrolled that ASIN into the transparency program, then Amazon will not allow anyone sold using FBA, using seller fulfillment, merchant fulfillment. Nothing is allowed to be sold on Amazon unless it's got that QR sticker on it. And as a brand, you can control which stock goes to who, and so you can definitely limit who's able to sell it on Amazon. But it comes at a cost. There is a price.
Yeah, but it's basically the price of the sticker and the handling. The alternative that we have people suggest to us, I think that's not the smart move, is I'm going to create Amazon only or online only products, which I feel like is probably just really not right, because one, you're going to design and create new lines. Two, you're going to have to cash flow that. And then three, you have to manage it the whole time. And so you're going to create more product when essentially, or more headache when you pop in transparency.
That's a different way of tackling the problem. I am not that reluctant to it. I think there are certain times when that works well for a brand, but I do agree with you. You are potentially creating more headache for yourself, and you're probably just avoiding the core thing, which is that customers want to buy in more than one place. But ultimately, this is when we're looking at resellers. I think fundamentally you need to make a decision as to how you have to come to the conclusion. You need to limit how many resellers are on there. Maybe it's one, maybe it's two or three. The more that are on there, the harder that gets to manage. Transparency, as I say, is a way that just an absolute button you can push and stop it and control it.
I agree with you generally. My thing on it is where my strategy differs, or where my approach differs, is on the number of people. I'm not fussed if there's like 100 people selling my product. If I control the listing and I know through wholesale they're not going to be able to kind of compete and drive the price down because of the pricing at wholesale outlets and the other places, it's not a problem. You could have a whole bunch of them. I don't see why there's a problem, because Amazon has built-in structures within its mechanisms to kind of rank everybody.
Yes and no. All right, so you're right to an extent, but there's a really important point there. I feel that is key to that working, and that's that people don't drop their prices. So, but your problem is people start significantly dropping their price. And I come back to my original argument, which is the brand is probably the only seller that's willing to spend money on advertising. And if you don't have the buy box, you can't advertise using sponsored product.
Yes. I don't disagree. So it's a buy box. That's a buy box question. I don't. I think in terms of having people selling your product, not a problem. It's if you're losing the buy box, then there's a scenario. But realistically, it's often because of either fulfillment method or your price. Those are the two common ones that we see. Fulfillment method, you're using FBA. That's going to boost you. And if it's price, then realistically, that's where again manage your wholesale distribution elements. Make sure the pricing's adequate to protect you. Otherwise, I don't see it as a problem. I think the idea of only being a single one only works when you're either a massive company or if you are online only. But if you exist in the real world, like many of the brands that have multiple distribution channels, you're not going to be able to get 100% zero. It's just not going to happen. So you have to accept the reality that your approach is either going to be manage it with the team and as a business, and if resellers are not listening, then implement your other suggestion, which is transparency, and then knock them all out.
So what we're coming up through this ugly through to the bad and hopefully into the good. And I think you've hit the nail on the head when you've said it's not simply resellers, it's resellers and then losing the buy box. So what we're talking about here is the buy box. That's the key element here. If you can control the buy box, resellers aren't an issue. If you lose control of the buy box, then resellers become an issue.
Yeah, I'd say the bad is a scale of that, right? So if I was going to say like ugly and bad, that's part of that scale. The bad is kind of just like a lower end of that where you either just not actually pricing or you're using the buy box. That's probably a bad scenario. The bad scenario, the buy box is going. That's my feeling. And so to rein those in, that's how I think I'd approach it.
And Amazon's unique in this buy box, right? So when it comes to the buy box and the way it uses it and who it awards to, because ultimately anyone that's there listed against a product, they can sell at all times, but the buy box gets the order 98, 99% of the time. And only one seller can have the buy box at one point in time. So fundamentally, if you don't have the buy box, you're not selling.
Let's talk about the good scenario. I think there's sometimes brands that approach us, that talk to us, and they just do not have the capacity to sell on Amazon for whatever reason. They don't have the internal resource. They don't want to hire an internal agency. Maybe the sales volume is not high enough to justify either of those two previous options, but they still want to have a presence on Amazon. Right. And so we had a solution for some brands who did that.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, fundamentally, there are some brands there that are just B2B machines. That's what they do. They ship pallets. They don't ship product. My personal feeling is that there is an option there that you can take that and still work in a B2C environment. But I understand the inclination not to do it. And so in that case, what you want to do is manage the brand through an Amazon account. Make sure you're overseeing the content and also doing like brand advertising, display advertising, that side of it you can continue to do even if you don't have the buy box. And then let your distributors or your partners handle the relationship directly with Amazon for selling product.
Yeah, I agree. Often what we'll find is the resellers will not invest in brand advertising because it's not they don't have necessarily have an incentive to do that. So they'll just do basic, put the product on and let it run, right? If they don't have buy box competition, then they're not going to drop price and they probably won't do sponsored any type of advertising because if you aren't the seller, you can't do sponsored product ads. So that's where the brand might come in and run their own ads. But I have another idea around that. When you're coming to the agreement with that company, right? So if let's say Apple was going to sell through someone, then they would tell this company, they would say, right, we'll give you the rights to sell exclusively in this marketplace or on Amazon in the UK by yourselves. No one else will get it. But you have to keep the exclusivity, you have to hit certain revenue targets, right? And then that's how you incentivize them because then they would have to then grow the brand or run advertising to grow the sales. That's how I would do it. I'll say we'll give you exclusivity for 6 months. If you to keep it, you have to hit these targets, and then we can run you. That's my show.
That's great. I agree with you. I think you've unpacked it really well, and that's a really nice, concise way, clean way of actually looking at it. And I think there's lots of options there for lots of brands. I think what you've proven there, as the comedian said last night to you directly, that's why you're the big dog.
You're very much the big dog. I am definitely not big dog. But yeah, so I think that's the way to do it. Have your distributor, give them some targets. Obviously, give them pricing that will allow them to do that. So don't be trying fair on them, but work in the partner. And so the good, the bad, the ugly, we can all get along.
I like that. Ali, one love.
Cool. One love. Peace out.